over.
Oh, you didn't drop in?
Yeah, I know, right?
He didn't even say hi.
Didn't stop in for a cup of tea or a biscuit.
Yeah, you could have asked the pilot like to land in the field behind my house. I could have.
So just the long and short of that moose story was I wanted to kind of come around to that's where the nickname Bullwinkle comes from Ryan's Volkswagen van.
Correct. Yeah,
because it hit a moose and basically destroyed the front of it. Guys, we are live right now. We have been for about 30 seconds on the Car Guy and Six Fan Show on this Thursday evening. Welcome to the show. My name is Jason. I'm the car guy of the Car Guy and Six Fan Show, and my partner in crime is Grant, who is right over here.
Yeah. So straight Six Fan here on YouTube, Six Fan of the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. And a reminder, we are powered by the Get Out and Drive podcast. So welcome in, everybody. And I think we're in for a ride tonight with our guests, to put it lightly. So with that, I'll just set them up and let them take it from here and introduce themselves.
I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Ryan. You can tell I'm Ryan. This is Sean. You can tell the difference because I'm the handsome one. Everything's Broken Garage. We've been around since 2020, I think. We live in the most easterly point in North America, called Newfoundland. It's a great place to visit, terrible place to live. Take it away, Sean.
I'm Sean. I don't live in the most easterly place in North America.
Sure you don't. Live on the other side of the island.
A little further west. I'm on the other side of the island now, which makes the whole filming and communicating thing a whole lot harder, especially since internet is subpar. But we make it work, and we're going to make it work, and we got a lot of exciting things in the hopper coming through now, and excited to share it.
Yes. Mooseland. Correct.
Mooseland. Otherwise, all the Canadians know exactly what they're talking about. But it's great to have you guys on the show. Before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, we got a couple of housekeeping details to get into. And we always like to welcome our guests in the chat. Ryan is usually there under Everything is Broken Garage, but obviously he's with us tonight. So Grant, why don't you tell us who's joining us in the chat tonight?
Yeah, so we have Uncle Squirrel, Jason Rock, Will's Wheels, Get Out and Drive, of course, is here to support us as we support them. Turlo's Garage, Joanne Meyer moderating for us tonight, like many nights, almost all nights. And I believe that touches them all for right now. So drop a comment in if you're watching, but I didn't announce your name. What else, Jason? What, I guess the super chat thing. We remind everybody about the super chat thing.
Yeah, so super chats is something we gladly and graciously accept, but we don't let them go unnoticed. We do keep note of who does offer the super chats, and at the end of the season, we take that and we put your name towards a final gift or draw or something like that at the end of the season, just to kind of give a payback and a throwback to you guys for supporting us for as much as you do. So we keep track on each channel. Therefore, there might be more than one something to go out there to everybody. Last thing, there you go. Turlo, Andy has jumped in $1.99. Thank you, Andy, for that. I also want to give one quick shout out to the National Get Out and Drive Day coming up real quick on October the 2nd. If you're not signed up for National Get Out and Drive Day, head over to getoutandrive.com and sign yourself up, and Joanne will make sure she sends you out one of these Get Out and Drive Day stickers. You can post that on your car and make sure you tag #National Get Out and Drive Day. I think it's time to jump right into some questions and see exactly what Everything is Broken Garage is all about, guys. Whoever wants to talk first, I'm sure it's going to be Ryan. He always does. Tell us a little bit about what Everything is Broken Garage is all about.
It started, I guess, we were fixing cars in my garage because I own a pile of crap. And
wait, singular?
Hey, this might be something people want to watch. And 634 people decided it was something they wanted to watch.
Yeah, and like we haven't really been pushing a whole lot on the branching out and doing our thing. We just set up a camera and have a bit of fun, and whatever comes out, comes out. And
usually there's a lot of cursing and swearing and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah.
Somebody usually bleeds. It's
and it's usually me doing all of those things.
Yeah, but I'm behind the camera.
Well, so you talked about before we went live, we were kind of breaking down the moose to person ratio there in Newfoundland, but also you were talking about the car to person ratios. So talk a little bit about that. What makes Newfoundland unique in that regard when it comes to motor vehicles?
Well, I guess there's not much to do here. Like, it's an island.
You just drive. But see, everything outside of St. John's, and even including St. John's, is like spaced apart more than you'd ever be able to walk. And public transit is too congested to be able to do it.
Yep.
Like where I live now, the closest grocery store is a 45-kilometer drive away. So
What's that in Freedom Eagles? 25 miles?
math is hard. I don't know. Sorry. But
Probably like 28 or 9, I think.
Okay.
yeah, so you gotta have
Some modes.
some sort of transportation, and I mean, you can't ride a moose everywhere.
It's hard. But traditionally, Newfoundland didn't have roads. So traditionally, we were all coastal communities. So the only way things came in and out of the island was by boats traveling along the sort of the outskirts of the island. So then when they decided to put a road across the province, when we joined Confederation in 49, I think the new Trans-Canada Highway part of Newfoundland was finished in 69, I want to say. Don't hold me on that.
Somewhere around
There. It was in the 60s or 70s. That was the first time you could actually drive from the capital city of St. John's, which is on the east coast where I live, all the way to, say, CARRGUY Valley on the west coast where Sean lives. So yeah, there's not much going on here. And maybe we were just making up for lost time. So everybody just bought cars. But yeah, most people have more than one. Some people have a lot.
like you.
A lot of them don't work.
Most of them.
Yeah, and Ryan was probably there for every mile of that highway being put in back in '69. So keeping track of things here tonight, we just want to make sure that everybody knows that we also have Melissa Nunya moderating to help us in there, share out some information if you guys see something you like in those in the chat, as far as merchandise, as far as Instagram handles and all that sort of thing. Melissa's going to be sharing that stuff out. Thank you, Melissa, for jumping in here tonight. We really appreciate that. I guess we want to talk a little bit about what some of the things you guys are currently doing. I know the channel is not hugely active at the moment, but you do have a couple of projects on the go. And one of them we talked, again, before we went live, was Bullwinkle. Tell us a little bit about that project and how it came to be.
Okay, so
I'll handle this
you
one.
should handle.
So Volkswagen guys, we both very much enjoy German cars and Volkswagens, and
It's an addiction.
it's a problem.
It's a problem.
But Ryan sent me a picture of this Volkswagen bus,
Before it hit the moose. I sent him a picture of it before it hit the moose.
and he said, "This is nice," and I'm like, "No, it's not." And he said, "Yes, it is." And I mean, for what it is, it was nice.
It was nice.
And he said he was thinking about getting it. I said, "Ryan, don't get it. There's something else I'm going to have to fix." And then he said, "I'm going to get it." And I'm like, "Oh, whatever, man. It is what it is." He said, "But it hit a moose."
So it was really cheap.
Yeah, which is kind of your thing.
It is my thing.
But I didn't understand the extent of it until we went to look at it, because we went to this guy's garage, and
Yeah.
I was expecting to see a bus with the front squat in maybe, and if it was all together and untouched, it's not as bad of a project as what it is. But then when I got there, the front was already cut out of it.
It was.
And I had no idea where to start or where to finish. So I moved away.
He up and left town. Moral of the story: everything's broken. Garage is done. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, but it surprisingly runs well. I had to hotwire it because there's no dash or ignition or anything, but might have cranked over half a dozen times and fired right up, and the brakes work and the clutch works.
Which is surprising because most things I buy don't have brakes or clutches. Or engines that work.
Well,
Thank you, Uncle Squirrel.
Well, that's a kind of a good segue into where I wanted to go next, but you halfway answered it already. But I was going to say, how does one decide a YouTube channel makes sense when the two parts are 45 kilometers apart? And so it sounds like sounds like Sean, you moved away for probably work or something. But how's it been keeping that channel dynamic with being so far away?
Very troublesome, mostly because internet connections are
Help us, Elon.
not the best. Yeah, there's slow connectivity out where I am. I moved home, like, where I grew up in the CARRGUY Valley. It's almost as far west as you can go in Newfoundland.
He's closer to Jason than I am by about 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah, so I just had enough of the city. I'm not a city boy. I grew up on a farm and working in the country, and I kind of needed to get out of the city, and so I moved home and started another project.
And yeah, so I think our latest video is supposed to drop shortly after or before this show. I don't remember. I set the time and I forgot.
That's again your thing.
But yeah, so Sean actually has a new garage that he's opening in his hometown. So he went home to open a garage and work on other people's junk.
Yeah,
Which is
and
exciting.
it's the first garage I ever worked in before I even graduated high school.
So it's completion by return.
Yeah, it's just made the circle and
Come right back
turned
to
it
your
around.
roots. And now you're educated from the big city,
Yeah.
and you know lots of stuff. And
You're a GM Master Tech, right?
Yeah, GM Grandmaster.
Yeah.
And a few certifications from Volkswagen and Audi, and lots of ASE certifications on top.
So he's just working on garbage, is what he's saying.
Yeah, and I really like to use a torch. So
And you need that here. Nothing is not rusty, ever.
even the new stuff is rusty.
Yeah. Like you'll look at a car. So Grant, just to give you an example, you'll look at a car that's probably been down there for 10 years, and it doesn't have nearly as much rust on it, or something that's here for a year will have more rust on it than you have in 10 years. So I always laugh because you talk about the Kansas YouTube conspiracy. I don't know if you're a partaker of that conspiracy. That
Tell me more.
YouTubers from certain areas of Kansas, Hoovie's Garage,
Oh yeah.
the Car Wizard and whatnot. They've all sort of become huge. There's like I don't know if they're sacrificing people to things or if there's some sort of cult going on there, but there seems to be a lot of YouTubers from automotive backgrounds making a lot of money in Kansas.
Aside from me. Oh, so, yeah. Exception. You know me, offbeat hot rodding. I want to be the exception to every rule out there. So, what?
But anyway, going back, so yeah, I see them work on their cars and they go, "Oh, this is from it's so rusty," and they're, "Oh, I'm gonna break a bolt. Oh, I thought I was gonna break that off," and that's not rust.
And I look at it like something I'd chew off because I was bored.
Yeah, like there's a level of rust here that I can't even So I have a 2010, so it's 12 years old.
Yeah.
Touareg, Volkswagen Touareg is my daily driver, and I had to put rockers in it. And
Wait,
you had to put rockers in it, sorry. And it was completely, all the panels were replaced under rust warranty, and the whole car was painted by Volkswagen. So yeah, there's a lot of rust here. It's terrible. So nothing lasts.
We talk about rust. It's common. Like we just know what it is. We know how to deal with it. Well, I guess I say we know how to deal with it. It's basically either you deal with it or you don't. So
it's a cancer. Just will continue to grow.
It is. And anybody who lives in the U.S. Rust Belt, and we're talking from New England up through Ohio, Indiana, up through Michigan, those places, you guys all know exactly what we're talking about. You get cars that are 5 and 7 years old, and you're really having to start looking at things and how you're going to combat this rust that we deal with here in the Salt Belt, because we're throwing salt on the roads like it's going out of fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And hence one of the reasons why moose are such a big deal in the wintertime is because they're coming to the roads, they're licking the roads, they're literally licking the salt off the roads. So that's why there's so many moose and car collisions. I wanted to kind of dive a little bit into the background. We already talked a little bit about Sean, but the background in your automotive and what draws you into what it is you do. I mean, we can't help but see that you guys both have an affliction for Volkswagen, and I'm really sorry to hear that. But at the end of the day, you both really, come together because of it, obviously. But tell us a little bit what draws you to cars and the ability to want to fix them and want to keep going with them?
Well, I have a background in IT, so I view cars as simple computers, which I know sounds funny because new cars are basically computers. But yeah, I just like the simplicity of it. I love, honestly, it's Top Gear. If I have to go back to one thing that pushed me towards cars, it's Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond. They were my, they were my Beatles, if you will, to the car love. My parents are not car people. I have no family that was car people. But I remember watching Top Gear, starting to watch it in probably the mid 2000s when it first came back on television, or was first shown over in North America on BBC America. And I just fell in love with cars, and yeah, I always been. I was a late bloomer. I know it seems strange. I seem like I'm a late bloomer. I know, but I didn't get my license until I was 24. I think I'm 36 now, so I've had my license 12 years. So I've also been making up I know, right? You didn't know that, did you? I've been making up a lot of lost time.
Math just happened there, folks.
So yeah, I basically making up for lost time for me. I love them. Volkswagens was specifically background in IT. So you wrote the V. Shh. No, that I cannot comment.
It would make sense that they would pick someone from Newfoundland.
We don't have any emission standards.
They're like, where's the most obscure place in the world we could, if someone was going to do it, they'll never track him down there.
But funnily enough, Volkswagen's president was here last month to sign a deal with our government for hydrogen. So we're actually going to be one of the largest hydrogen producing entities in North America shortly, which we can get into because I have some very strong opinions about it.
Well,
we not get to it. And
obviously, yeah, why wait?
No, we'll do that later. It's fine. Anyway, yeah, so that's my background. I'm IT. You can tell, I don't know if people have noticed what's behind me, but I also collect retro tech. So I have an affliction for Volkswagen and old computers, which means I'm poor.
And it smells like leaky capacitors in here.
It does. It smells like somebody let the magic smoke out.
For me, getting into cars and working on them, I wouldn't even know where to start because even my kindergarten yearbook, when they asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, I always said mechanic, and mostly because I must have been dropped as a child or something. It started off with, I'd like to say, Power Block TV on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And then it turned into waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning before school so I could watch Daisy Duke and just snowballed. But see, I'm a little more intelligent than Ryan. He's the handsome one, I'm the smart one.
You got to live somewhere, right?
I had a passion for cars long before I even really knew Volkswagen was a thing. Because where I grew up, there was one. And I didn't even know what it was, but I was big into Hummers and trophy trucks and square bodies and all the cool domestic stuff that was around.
Well, so let's keep it right there and talk about that in a little bit more depth. So you talk about the population's about 600,000 on the island, and so obviously there's not a ton of cars probably flooding in new inventory on an annual basis. And so so kind of two-part question. How is it that Volkswagen was your brand of choice there, Ryan? But two, what's probably the most common? What do you see the most of in Newfoundland?
Volkswagen for me was my cousin, Devin, who just dragged me to a Volkswagen meet, and I was like, "Oh, these people are like a cult. I could definitely be part of this." And here I am now, the leader of the cult for the most part, or one of the leaders, and it's it's pretty good. Pretty good. It's like a pyramid scheme, you get stock in Volkswagen.
And as for the most common vehicles here, it always was GM vehicles. That was the biggest one here. GM. Fords were
pretty big. I think our Ford dealership is actually probably the biggest Ford dealership in all of Atlantic Canada. I think we sell more Fords here than everywhere else in Atlantic Canada.
But now there's a lot of imports.
Yeah, Hyundai and Kia, because Newfoundlanders are cheap and
Hyundais and Kias are
cheap. Yeah, and You can literally do no maintenance on them, and when the engine blows up, they replace them for you. So it's a good system.
Well, in the way I was thinking of it too is just that I remember when I was in Iceland, there were a lot of VWs because it's actually not too far of a
Right.
trek, right, on a boat from Germany to Iceland. So it's just kind of that. I was just kind of curious with
So the thing about Volkswagen in Newfoundland was that at one point there were like 8 dealerships or 5 dealerships for Volkswagen back when they were selling the Beetles and the buses. And around 1990, the local Volkswagen dealer kind of
ate them all
and became the one and only. So there is only one Volkswagen dealer on the island, and it is in St. John's. So if you own a Volkswagen and you live out where Sean lives, you're basically what was it? You're shagged basically. You got no real SOL. There you go. So it's one of those things. One of the things we find on the island is that because there is usually only one of a dealer, there's not really necessarily a great what's the word?
There's no competition.
No competition. So they don't really have to give you a deal, especially when it comes to the imports. There's a lot of domestic dealers, but you will fight for a deal. But then on the flip side is our resale value here in Newfoundland is terrible.
Because of the rust.
So, the joke is I only spend $500 on a car, and that is literally, I've only spent more than $500 on one vehicle. No, it's a lot, 2 vehicles. The Touareg I paid $1,400 for out the door, and the van, the Bullwinkle, I think I paid $1,300 for. But everything else I've ever owned was $500 less.
Well,
initial purchase.
Yeah, I was going to say,
but if my wife is watching, it was only $500.
There you go. So I don't know about you, Grant, but I think that I don't think I would drive 10 hours across Newfoundland to go buy a Volkswagen. I don't think I would do that. I don't think I would drive 10 hours across the prairies to do the same thing. I'm just saying, maybe it's just me. But I guess, the big thing about Volkswagen is I found over the years is that when you find one that works really well, they work really well. The problem is that they just seem to, we've always used the term over-engineer every little thing. And we used to sell a few Jettas, and we had, I like the Jettas myself. They were a decent car. And we're talking like the 06 to whatever that generation stopped. Yeah. And they were great cars. And we had a customer come in who the wipers wouldn't work on his car for some reason. Okay, so we pop the hood, we take the cowl off, trying to figure it out. And for the life of us, we could not figure out why those wipers wouldn't work. And come to find out, you can't test the wipers with the hood up, because if the hood's up, the wipers will shut off.
I knew that's where that was going.
Great. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So what you have to do is take the cowl, take all that stuff off, close the hood, then go in and hit the switch.
But Jason, you have to make sure you remember to remove your Phytech from the hood.
Yes, before you close the hood.
But the Mark 6 Jettas, for sure, they were set up in a way that the wipers could operate with the hood up if you latched the hood. So if you
push the hood
pushed
down
in on the hood latch, you could head the hood up and work at the wiper system while you want. Good for clocking the motors when you put them on.
Those are things that when you're working on stuff that you're not familiar with, right? You learn along the way. And I guess where I'm going with that story is that what we've learned is stop selling Jettas. I mean, we just don't bring them in anymore.
It's funny. My mom wanted to buy a new vehicle about 2 years ago, and she was asking me what she should buy, and I said, "Well, listen, you shouldn't buy a Volkswagen, right? Like, don't follow me. Don't buy a Volkswagen." So my mom, it's easy to tell that I'm definitely my mom's son. She bought a Volkswagen. So sure, her choice was a RAV4 or a Tiguan, and she chose wrong. But for her, it's a point-to-point vehicle. Eventually, it'll fail, and she'll get a RAV4, and it'll be fine.
But in saying that, the drive quality.
Oh, the Tiguan is beautiful.
RAV4,
it's beautiful. As long as you don't mind the timing chain making a ticking noise or the turbo whistling, it's fine.
That warranty fixes it.
They do.
It's totally fine.
Totally fine. But yeah, anybody out there, if you're buying a used Volkswagen, I highly recommend the $4,000 covers everything extended warranty for 5 years. I've got my money out of that a lot.
Yeah, anything Volkswagen, you definitely want a heavy warranty with it.
Like one turbo replacement, which we just got done on Mom's Touareg or Tiguan, was well over $4,000 in labor and parts. So,
And maybe the only thing of a better deal than that warranty would be a head gasket replacement warranty on Subarus. So
Yeah,
do they offer such a thing? I assume they
I don't think so.
Yeah,
You'd be an idiot insurance guy if that was the thing. So no, but I just wanted to point out a pretty interesting juxtaposition of comments back to back in the chat. So Glenn Nickerson came in second, saying the Germans like a lot of moving parts, which is ironic because, of course, the People's Car back in under Adolf's instruction, the air cooled. It was as few moving parts as possible, which is what Paul Speedshop's pointing out. So I'm guessing that guy. I don't remember the name of that. I watched a documentary once upon a time, but whoever that designer of the People's Car.
it was Ferdinand Porsche.
There you go. Yes. Yeah, easy name to forget.
Went on to make some other
some guy.
I hear they're good.
Some guy. Yeah, that's really fun and embarrassing for me. So we'll switch the topic right away. And so since I personally am sick of talking about this topic, I guess I'm going to frame the question the way I want to.
So Doc, and relax. You take over, Grant. Go ahead, buddy.
Sean, Ryan, you know the topic we've touched on maybe only 5 weeks in a row. And so I guess instead of talking about EVs straight up, I will say what is your idea or what is your solution to an alternative fuel or an alternative solution to the petroleum-based internal combustion engine as we know it today?
Walk, moves. But barring that, I think diesel electric. I know it's a scary thing coming from a Volkswagen guy, but I think diesel electric needs to be given a chance. I mean, it's a fantastic technology. We already know it works. Put a 3-cylinder diesel, small little engine in a pickup truck, and some big electric motors and a couple of batteries to tend to. Then you get the best of both worlds. You don't have to wait 2 hours or a half hour for it to charge. So that's my idea. And yes, like Fox said, hydrogen for sure is probably the next best option. But with the tech we have today, there's no reason we can't do a hybrid diesel electric. I mean, Jesus, we've been doing it in trains for 60 years. It can't be that hard.
But the problem with that is we're still having diesel engines running that are going to be choked to death with emissions.
That's the other side of it.
They don't last.
Yeah.
But like Fox said, hydrogen cell vehicles, we have the technology now to be able to create hydrogen on demand.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was a way that we could have something that could convert water to hydrogen in the car, so you just put water in your tank.
Yeah. So
the problem with hydrogen cars before was the storage. It was so volatile that if you got into a simple fender bender, you could take you half of St. John's.
Well, but I mean, electric cars are not much better. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the bottom of a Lightning yet, but it looks like the front of a Panzer. It's armored, essentially. There's a 1/4 inch of steel plate to protect the electric batteries. I have to imagine that might be fine in Southern California, but here in Newfoundland, that steel plate is eventually going to turn to nothing, and then those cars are going to explode when they get on a small fender bender. So, anyway. Electric is cool. I think it's definitely the future. I'm excited. I like how fast it goes. I just think all we're doing is passing the buck at this point until we find some way of making the batteries more recyclable and make the batteries what they're made out of better and make them charge faster.
Yeah, so that's a double-sided coin. I agree with you on the fact that electric vehicles are super cool, super fast. They can be reliable. The technology is always evolving.
For sure.
But the industry is pushing it too hard right now.
100%.
We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. But in saying that, if it's not going to get pushed, the technology is not going to advance. So what do you do?
Yeah. I fear that we're going to get to a point in 2025 or 2030 where these electric cars are going to realize that they're not the greatest thing in the world. There's going to be a huge push for secondhand gas cars, and the prices are going to go through the absolute roof. Right?
But if you go back to when was it that North America got really tight on their emission standards. It was around 74, 75.
I don't know. These guys know. They know.
Actually, so because I did some research
Hold on.
for if I would have actually cared to put some effort into it, and because YouTube's about being timely, right? So the 50th anniversary of emissions, it was actually it was basically January of 1970. So the peak of the muscle car era, like all of the regulations that were being like written in 69, they come out in 1970, which makes basically Detroit, starting in 71, have to start figuring out how to comply. And by the time you hit 74 was when basically the government said, like, no, you've got to be all in.
Log pump safe polar bears.
Yes.
So I think we're in a similar dynamic in the industry now, that these regulations and new technologies are being forced down everybody's necks, and everybody's pushing back, not happy about it. Like we were in the early 70s with these big V8s pushing out 120 horsepower and
fast.
So maybe when push comes to shove, it'll all clean itself up like it did in. Well, wait, it hasn't.
No, for me, the problem is that we spend all this time making gas and diesel cars super efficient and super good for the environment. Like, an engine built today is so much more efficient and better than an engine built 10 years ago and an engine built 20 years ago. So we're talking about fractions of a fraction we're trying to save. But sometimes we figured out the technology. This turbo engine is great. Let's just run this for the next 5 years. And while we're doing that, let's do some diesel hybrids or some gas hybrid stuff. And then when that works, okay, we got a new battery that can charge in 2 minutes. Perfect.
The other problem to what you speak of, though, Ryan, is that over the years, like if you took my 1995 Ford F-150 and put it next to a 2022 Ford F-150, and you saw how bloated the things got over that amount of time. Like if you put the 2.7 liter EcoBoost in my 95 Ford F-150, I guarantee you it could clock off 25 miles to the gallon pretty easily, because it was a pretty slim, trimmed down. Proportions weren't ridiculous. The bed all of a sudden got 6 inches taller, as we crested 2004 and things like that. All of a sudden you're lugging around so much more weight. But what I wanted to get back to is I think you guys bring a really unique perspective, because I think the industry is trying to make a one-size-fits-all solution to this global problem, right? So you guys being in Newfoundland, you talked about so there's two things, right? Like, so the electric solution, batteries are gonna corrode. You guys already deal with corrosion, right? It's like, so how do you protect that long term for you guys? Also, you then talk about hydrogen. Yeah, let's fill it up with water. Well, what happens when it hits 31 degrees for so many calendar days? How are you actually pumping water? What's the diesel gel fuel equivalent to additive to water?
Methyl hydrate, alcohol.
But sorry, I put a little pin in that for 2 seconds. We'll get right back to it. But I actually have another point. You were talking about the fact cars have gotten bigger. So I've actually had an argument recently with a coworker who said trucks today are too big. Right? That was the argument. They're too big. And I said, okay, they are big. And I said, but do you like safe vehicles? Yes, I like safe vehicles. I said, okay, well, the reason they're so big is because we have all these safety features. I was like, we could make them smaller, but they would look like they did in 1995. And I guess they would be considered unsafe. So
way cooler.
But it's funny that we have these people that probably were the same type of people who mentally were lobbying for safer vehicles in 1995 are the same people now who are saying, oh my God, the trucks are too big. So I just find it funny that you can't have both. And anyway, going back to your point, yes, batteries in essentially what we live in is a battery are terrible, especially with the cold. I don't know the exact metrics, but I've seen some reports that say, after a certain temperature drop, an electric battery is only good for half its original range. And then you add on to that, 5 years out, when it's 5 years of use built into it, how much more is there going to be lost? And here in Newfoundland, I watched the video recently of Hoovy's garage, took apart his electric, his F-150, his Lightning. And they took the frunk out, the front trunk. And underneath the frunk is the inverter and a couple of electric motors and a bunch of AC gubbins and a few other things, coolant lines and whatnot. But all that's exposed to the outside through the strut towers. So I said, again, in Southern California, that's not going to be a problem. But in Newfoundland and in New Brunswick, you're going to want to be cleaning that spot out at least once a year, if not twice a year, because all the salt from the roads, all the dirt and debris is just going to get up there and sit on the aluminum, which is white metal, and it's just going to corrode and eat through the
Turn to dust.
It's going to turn to dust. You're going to have a hole in your inverter. You're going to have a hole in your electric motor. And I was like, that's going to be terrible.
And I don't know if it's like it over your way, Jason, but you can have a brand new set of brakes on your car or your truck and take it for one drive with a brand new set of brakes, leave it overnight, and you wake up the next morning and they're orange.
Yep.
Just the air is corrosive here.
Yep.
I own a used car a lot, and we are putting brand new brakes literally on everything that we sell. And that's the first thing that I have to tell customers before we go on a test drive is you are going to hear a growling noise from the brakes because they sit on the lot and the car doesn't get driven for days or weeks at a time. So that's just the nature of the beast. We go back to, the extreme conditions that we live in. I don't think you need to go to extreme conditions. There's a couple of instances I've seen on Facebook, on YouTube and Instagram, where earlier Teslas, 2013s, 14s, were having the AC condenser drip on the battery, on the top of the battery, which over time corroded the casing. And then water gets into the battery. And what happens to batteries and water? They're done.
That's right.
And they're
magic smoke.
Here in Canada, they're trying to get recalls on those through Transport Canada. They're trying to do that. The same thing with the National Highway Safety, whatever they're called in the U.S., to recall such simple things. Tesla, for instance, just sits back and says, "Oh, it's out of warranty. I'm sorry, nothing we can do." But this is happening in vehicles that are in warranty.
That's right.
And know there's a problem.
It's not so simple as a coil pack breaking down or spark plugs that need to be replaced, or even an engine.
Yeah, even putting a block in.
You can repair an engine, you can take it apart and replace all the parts. But most of the batteries are unserviceable, and every one of them is a $10,000 to $15,000 price tag.
Lay long.
Yeah, and the other thing with that too is that you get. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The other thing too is that people talk about the environmental impact of EV versus the internal combustion engine. And I mean, the grand scheme of things, the internal combustion engine probably does pollute a lot more over the life expectancy of the car. But guess what? When that battery fails or catches fire, you tell me which vehicle then is more environmentally friendly. Look, we need to get off this topic because I say at every episode we could spend all night talking about this.
Hold on, I'm going to get on my soapbox.
Yeah, and I do want to take a little bit of time. Maybe we'll cap it at like 8 or 10 minutes and talk about this new Mustang. It was unveiled last night. There's lots of the rumor mill. There's lots of talk about what it does look like. We don't want to talk about that. They are calling this new platform, I believe. Is it a new platform? They call it the S650.
Yep, that's a seventh generation.
So it's completely new. All the body panels are new. There's nothing. I shouldn't say nothing. I'm sure there's a few.
The interior looks a lot like a 550. So
so at the end of the day, they're basically calling this a completely new Mustang. And I wanted to do a couple of things. So one, I want to get everybody's take on it without saying how much it looks like a Camaro. Yeah, okay, fine. But at the end of the day, we want to just look at it and say, okay, what is Ford doing? Are they taking the right steps? Are they moving in the right direction? Stuff like that. So Grant, being our resident Ford guy, I want to get him the opportunity to kind of speak first because he owns an EcoBoost Mustang 2015, I believe it is. And, so he's kind of owning that. He's driven it for a few years now. And now that he sees that next generation, kind of what our first thoughts. So Grant, why don't you just talk a little bit about it and tell me what you think?
Yeah, so I mean, the running joke is, I saw a dark horse, which is what you see right here, the first thing, and I was like, oh, so you gave us a Camaro, but my short take is like, overall I like it, right? So I'm not, but I am surprised. I don't know how much I thought it would depart a little further from the maybe Andy. I thought they would depart or go a little further from this current S550 generation, the one I own. Like, there are way too many similar, I think, sheet metal body panels. Just looking at, you put the two side by side, but I put myself in the designer standpoint and I say, okay, well, how do you make it look like it graduated from this one and became this one without like reinventing the wheel too? So there's kind of there's a balance there, right? But I would say probably my favorite feature of the car, and I'll wrap up with this, is I think they knocked it out of the park on the rear deck. The tail lights are kind of one of my favorite ones, and that's, very reminisce to the like 67, 68 kind of era.
And I want to chime in too and say that, yeah, there are subtle differences. And that's one of the things that I loved about cars of early days, is getting that ever so slight change from year to year that said, okay, well, how do you tell a 56 from a 57? Well, it's because of the headlights, or it's because of the grille or the taillight or the whatever. And we got into that, and then we can sit there and say, I love everything about this car. And then a new one comes out. Oh, that's even better. And then along comes the 70s. And everything is okay. Well, it costs too much to retool, so let's make this same car look like the same car for 5 years. And they kind of got away from that again as of recent, where they go 2 or 3 years and they do a slight redesign to kind of change a headlight and a tail light and a this and that. And I think that when I look at this car, one thing I'm absolutely happy about is that they've kept it as an internal combustion engine. They didn't go solely EV like Dodge is threatening to do in the next few years. They're keeping that historic part of the car. I do love the new headlights. I do, and I think there's even an EcoBoost picture in there somewhere. Grant, is that it right there? No, that's not it. I think
no, I think that is, yeah, they have different.
So the EcoBoost has a little bit of a different front end, and they're just, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep with the times, trying to keep with that S550 style, but bump it up a little bit. And I think, despite the fact that I'm not necessarily a Ford guy, even though currently everything I own is almost a Ford, but the idea is I think that when it comes to the Mustang, I like it. It's sharper. It's edgy. It's kind of moving with the trend. And if I'm a design guy and I'm trying to appeal to younger generations and older generations, I'm trying to fit that mold with every model of the Mustang, from the EcoBoost up to the Dark Horse. So Ryan and Sean, I want to get your guys' take on this a little bit too.
I'm going to make I was going to make a joke about whether it has a 5.3 in it or a 6-liter, because Camaro, but I'm going to actually propose a question. I'm going to be a better guest and not make fun of things. Do you think this represents the best possible swan song for the 5-liter V8? You look at this and you think back in 10 years when they don't exist anymore. Is this what you're going to be happy with remembering?
I think so.
You think?
First time I seen the Dark Horse, I mean, that's the first one everybody seen, was the Dark Horse. I instantly got sucked into the big, thick, square grille right in the front. And they're keeping it in every model, like you said, from the EcoBoost right up to the Dark Horse. Yeah. And it just looks angry. And to me, that's how a muscle car should look. Like, sure. You look at the S55s, like what Grant has, and the nose is tipped down a bit more, and it kind of has like a European feel to it, but it's an American car. American cars are pissed off looking.
Yeah, they're always angry. That's no problem. That's definitely.
And it just looks good.
I'm just worried that, this is the swan song, so we're going to want to appreciate it as much as possible. So, I kind of look at it like, you look at the Hellcat or the Demon, and you go, if they shut that down tomorrow, it's a great memory, right? Is this going to be as good of that memory? Would be my only question, because as sure as there's shit in a cat, Hey, Cat Shop Cat. This is the last of the V8 big V8s. I just know they're not going to have them around for much longer.
Well, I do recall I was in there a little bit during the reveal, and Shopcat makes a great point that when they were doing certain parts of that reveal, they had to keep trying to boost the crowd to clap and to cheer and this and that. And I think in some cases that it wasn't. I don't believe in that live reveal that it was as well received as Ford was certainly hoping to. But at the end of the day, if you're a Ford guy or you're a Mustang guy, I think it comes to, I don't know. You've really got to be the type of guy that says, you know what, I either like it or I don't. And at the end of the day, you're going to buy one or you're not going to.
Oh. Or Jason's going to remove himself from the show. So
the video here and shut Jason up before he can say anything to limit sales.
Yeah, it's cancel culture here on the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. We didn't like what he was saying. I am the Ford guy, and enough of that, Jason. No, so we'll keep going.
It's definitely a car that you either appreciate it or you don't. And I think the biggest problem with the live reveal was it wasn't a massive change from the previous generation as it was being hyped up to be. So when they brought out this very S550 looking Mustang, it was a little lackluster.
I've seen this show before.
Well, and I mean, honestly, so as a Mustang owner, a recent Mustang owner, I've only come at this point in time to understand all the, like, it's the design code or whatever, like the original project, gets some designation. So when I heard it was going to be called an S650, that in of itself, I think told me, it's like, oh, well, you're not really going to try, like, you're just going to modify the 550 chassis, because the series before the 550 was the 197 and the one before the 197 was the SN95. So it's like, I think you could tell out of the gate, you're like, well, you guys aren't you're not gonna do that much if you're just gonna call it the 650.
I mean, if they came out with, like, they were gonna put the Godzilla motor in it for like a special edition, that'd be kind of cool. Like if they were gonna make a demon killer, or they were gonna make a something cool out of it.
Yeah, like the S730, right? Like you would have like, wait a second.
Something, the last swan song of the V8, the biggest Jesus thing they could put in there, but
they're just leaving that up to us. That's all.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to swap one in. And from
Well, yeah. Luckily, I still have host like admin responsibilities on my end. StreamYard has made that to where co-hosts can do things like this. So this is helpful for sure. I guess at this point in the show, we'll throw it to the chat. If you guys have questions for Sean or for Ryan or for both, go ahead and think about those now. Throw them in the chat. We'll try to answer as many of those as possible. But yeah, I guess going back to the whole Mustang chat was, I will say this, at the very least, the 650 is I wasn't enthused by how little it changed from the last one, but I will say that, like, as a 2015 Mustang owner, when they did the soft redesign, and I think it was 2019, they went away from like sharp styling cues to rounding some things off, and the grill became more fish mouth looking. I like that they went back to the edgy and the sharp corners.
You should cut yourself on a Mustang. That's just how it is.
That's right. There should be sharp lines. Yeah. So how is the EcoBoost Mustang?
Yeah. Tell us. How is
the way I describe it is, like, if you can get 30 miles to the gallon and do a 13-second quarter mile, I think that's a pretty awesome combination. So
does it give you a shit-eating grin? Do you smile every time you drive it?
Yeah. When the turbo spools up and you hear it, and turn the traction control off and get a little sideways and take out like 5 spectators, it's a good time.
5. Those are rookie numbers. You got to boost those numbers up.
I mean, 4 cylinders, five persons is kind of the tagline. So yeah, the V8's more of the 2 dozen.
Sorry, I jumped out on you guys there by mistake. The power flickered off here for about 20, 30 seconds, and I had to get things booted back up again.
We,
Not sure
we,
what's
we
going on there.
figured Ford. We figured Ford cut you off because you were going to say something to affect their sales.
You know, you never know. You never know what happens there. I
It's
did
Henry
see a
coming
couple.
back.
I did see a couple of questions roll in here from some folks, and the first one is coming from Andy Turlo, asking if you guys have any YouTube advice, anything that you found that you're doing that is working for you, or something that you've done that doesn't work.
Apparently, putting Sean in a crop shirt, throwing a stone in the water, completely unrelated, is 9,000 views. We did a short the other day about skipping a stone, and it did 9,000 views. So my suggestion is the metrics are made up, and the points don't matter. It's whose line is it anyway? There is no rule. It's up is down, left is right. Yeah.
It's mostly the guns, though.
Yeah, it's the guns. It's the gun show.
Yeah, there you go. Fox Can Fix It's asking, what's the most resilient / reliable car to have in Newfoundland?
Moose.
And don't say Volkswagen.
That's a loaded question. So
Toyota Corolla 2010.
beige,
Final engine. Beige. With a beige velour interior.
with the left rear bumper
Falling off.
with a massive dent in it.
Yeah, massive.
Every one of them.
Yeah. And tuck tape. Somewhere it has to have tuck tape somewhere. Why are you drinking the blue bottles? Oh, I'm glad somebody actually asked. This is iceberg beer. Oh, camera's over here. It's made from icebergs. Legitimate icebergs.
They go out in boats and break
catch them.
pieces off of icebergs. And
There's literally a job you can have in Newfoundland that's iceberg wrangler. That is a job. You go and catch icebergs.
That's pretty cool.
And that actually reminds me too, Jason. There's a box, I believe, on your end that you need to open.
Oh yes, the box.
Live.
What's in the box?
mystery
Oh.
box.
I'm going to let you kind of
Come on,
lead into
glitter
this, Ryan.
You know, that would have been when the power went out. That would have been a great time to grab the box,
shoot,
Jason.
the bomb went off too early.
You mean this box?
Yeah, that box.
So
I
Ryan said,
literally took stuff from
Ryan
the
said he
garage.
had
and
some
put it in
things
the
for
box.
me. Go ahead.
What's that? Sorry, yes. I literally took stuff from the garage and put it in the box. So there's some stuff in there that you're going to find cool. There's a couple of things I bought at auction that were kind of cool. And yeah, it's a surprise box. There is no surprise though.
So the surprise is that he literally wrote on the box, "Do not open until the live stream," because he sent this to me. The courier service from Newfoundland is pretty quick. He sent this yesterday, and I got it today. Like that's pretty cool.
Listen,
So-
the fuel surcharge plus charge on it was out to lunch.
Things are fast leaving the island and never coming back.
Yeah, no.
And so everybody knows I'm not accountable. I have no idea what's in that box.
he sent me a message showing me a picture of the box, and I literally texted him back.
Yeah,
It better
appropriate.
not embarrass me on TV on live
It's not
YouTube.
glitter. Don't worry.
No family aids, marital aids, or blow up dolls. I'll be fine. So I'm just gonna put the box down so I can handle everything here.
Careful.
I appreciate the disclaimer there, Sean, that you had absolutely no part in any of this. So here we go.
This is
All
good,
right.
in which case it was all my idea.
Man.
So the first thing I'm pulling out here is a turbo
Mercedes
diesel.
turbo diesel.
Looks like it's off of a Mercedes, maybe even.
It is.
That's pretty cool.
Is that after the brown one from the
Yep. It's a
back
brown one.
40?
Yeah.
Nice.
We've got a old school dwell meter for
Yep.
testing your alternator, your battery, or whatever you want to do.
That
That's
looks good on the
pretty cool.
shelf.
It's even got a tack built in, so you can check your RPMs, your RPMs. Oh, we got something. Oh, I know what this is. Sean,
That one's specific for a certain car.
he said he stole this from Sean. He was going to send it over to me before he noticed, but I guess Sean didn't realize that I was going to be opening it on the show. But
Yeah, you're not getting it for your Lada, by the way.
Nice.
So that
we've
is
got-
a East German communist license plate.
and guess where that's going?
Right on the Yugo.
Right on the Yugo.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. We've also got ourselves a Mercedes hubcap.
Mm.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to hang that up.
Sounds like a Mercedes. I'll
Yeah.
yeah.
Everything Mercedes from that era has a real bank vault sound, no matter what
So
you're
if
doing.
you live in Newfoundland and you're missing some parts off of your Mercedes,
Wasn't me.
maybe the entire car,
Listen, the car was
we're about to
completely-
find out. So, ladies and gentlemen, if your license plate is ANJ 879 from Newfoundland and you own a Mercedes, we know where to find your car.
It's at the scrapyard because that's from an 81 Mercedes 230D. So
A what?
Mercedes 230, I think it's a 230. Yeah, it's 230D. A 2.3 liter 4-cylinder turbo diesel.
And it had Bluetooth floors.
It had Bluetooth floors. Good features. Speaking of Bluetooth, did I hear you're going to SEMA?
I
See
am.
some Bluetooth drive shafts?
Well, we're going to be
Very
doing some
good.
Bluetooth broadcasts, yes, live from SEMA with the Get Out and Drive podcast. So myself,
No,
and
Bluetooth
John,
drive
Joanne-
shafts. Nobody puts their drive shafts in any of the rigs in SEMA. Have you noticed that? None of them drive in.
they don't need to drive. So
I
we've got
suppose.
some
My car show.
we got some new faux garage art and GK plugs. We got Ford motors,
You got to send that one down to Grant.
Chevrolet. Well, Grant's coming here in 2 weeks,
Oh, perfect. Put it in his
so
bag.
we'll be able to have Grant here. We'll give him. And
You don't
we've
want that Ford garbage on your wall anyway.
got Champion and Shell.
Perfect.
That's pretty cool. Is there more?
I don't know.
We got a Euro Union sticker.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I threw a bunch of stickers in there. I think that was only one. There's only one sticker in there.
You know what year
Is that everything, Ryan? Because I got a bunch
That's,
of. Huh?
that's everything, yes.
Okay, I just don't want to be digging through a bunch of paper if there's nothing else there. But
Oh,
thank you
it's
very
fine.
much. I appreciate
An hour
that.
of papers.
That's pretty cool. I'm excited about that.
Cool. The only thing I couldn't send was a new chair. That chair is just...
My Titanic chair, you don't like that?
That's from Nan's front parlor, I think. That's supposed to have plastic on it. You're not supposed to sit on it. It's for company.
Well, it had plastic on it until the cat got at it. Well, yeah, that was fun, guys. That's a pretty good show. I appreciate the gifts. We had lots of good chat, lots of talk. And if you guys are watching this in the after show and you're not watching it live, make sure you check the description down below for Everything is Broken Garage. And they've also got an Instagram. I'm not sure if you guys are doing any TikToks yet or not, but
We have TikTok. I occasionally do it. I'm scared of the Chinese algorithm, so...
yeah, there you go. So when you agree to TikTok, you're agreeing to a lot of things you didn't know you were agreeing to. So we've also got Grant. Do you know what's coming up next week? Can you help us out with what's coming up next week? My mind is a blank.
Yeah, so actually we've had an open slot for the Car Guy and Six Fan Show for a while for next week. So I think what we're going to wind up doing is treat next week as a legacy episode, and it's going to be a little bit of a test drive, if you will. So Jason and I have been talking a lot. I guess I'll spill the beans here. That the Car Guy and Six Fan Show might end up taking on a little different face in season 9, but we're gonna just testing some things out, and I think that's what we'll wind up doing next week. So cryptic enough.
Cryptic enough, yeah. So if you don't know what it's all about, because I mean, I haven't talked to Grant about this yet. So I'm pretty excited myself. So I hope you guys are. But that will be next week over on Grant's channel because we are a collaborative effort. We share hosting responsibilities for the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. So this week, obviously, being here on my channel, next week is back over on Grant's channel for the Legacy episode. We're back here on September 29th with Junkyard Diggs and Junkyard Mook. We're happy to have those guys back for a second viewing, second interview. We're just going to sit down. We're going to shoot the breeze. We're going to have a lot of great conversation. Hope you guys can join us then. And then on October the 6th, I believe, did we nail that date down? 6th or 7th? We haven't kind of done that yet. Grant is visiting from Kansas to Canada. So yeah, so the 7th is going to be a Friday. So that show will not take place on Thursday evening. It will take place on Friday. And there may or may not be some cold snacks consumed that night during that live episode. And we will be having a few guests popping in and out. And it will be an extended episode because we may just hit that live button and just see where the night takes us. There's no plans, there's no agenda or nothing. We're just gonna chit chat, have a couple of drinks, and see if we can entertain you guys from here in good old New Brunswick. Ryan, Sean, thanks so much for being a part of the show tonight. It was great, and we've had a lot of fun. We may get you back in again at some point, maybe even on the 7th for a little shindig. But having said that, Grant, why don't you go ahead and close out the show, and we will see you guys all next week over on Grant's channel.
Yes, Sean, Ryan, thanks again for coming on the show. We really, I think we did live up to the billing that we kind of threw out there at the very beginning. It was a ride. It was an adventure. So thanks again for coming on. We had a great time. Otherwise, to all my Six fans out there, thanks for watching.